And in this episode, I'm going to share with you, based on my own personal experience of renting for 5 years, the 3 things you need to know about renting in Singapore. Now, the first thing you need to know is the difference between renting a private condominium or apartment versus a HDB flat. Now, for private apartments, typically those that are nearer to town, larger in space, newer in age, will definitely fetch a higher rental price. Definitely, a new condo with more facilities will be more expensive than an older one with not so well-maintained facilities. So, for example, a 3-room condominium in River Valley will cost you about 4.4k per month. So you can choose to rent a bedroom from a main tenant or be a main tenant yourself. As a main tenant, you bear the responsibility of paying the monthly rental fees to the landlord, or you take responsibility of the whole place. Whereas when you rent a bedroom from the main tenant, you are helping the main tenant to keep up the place together, but really the responsibility is not as heavy. So my advice to you is to look for friends who are committed to rent the place with you for at least a year before you sign a tenancy agreement as the main tenant. So where can you find friends to rent with? You can find them through Facebook. There are a lot of groups that are looking for people to rent with them, or they are actually main tenants who put out the advertisement, so you can go and take a look. So the minimum period of renting a private bedroom or a private apartment is 3 months, and in the entire apartment there should not be more than 6 unrelated tenants. So now let's talk about HDB flat. Now, as compared to private apartment, the HDB flat has more restrictions simply because it is public housing. So what you need to do is to ensure that the owner is eligible to rent out the flat to you. So you can ask for an approval letter from HDB to show you, because the owner has got to be a Singapore citizen and have already completed a 5-year MOP period before they can rent out the whole flat to you. There's also such a thing as the non-citizen quota that must be met for the block and the neighborhood. So once the quota has been met, then that flat can only be rented out to Singaporeans or Malaysians. So the minimum period for renting a HDB flat is 6 months, and the maximum number of occupants cannot be more than 6 for a 3-room or bigger. So when renting a private or HDB flat, owners and their representative agents will definitely ask to verify your NRIC, passport or work permit. So they are required to verify the identification of the tenants, and they will be required to keep a copy. So whether is it private or HDB, I would strongly recommend that you don't depend on the advertisement or the photos itself, because it can be very misleading. I can never forget the 2 places I've been to view that I can never wait to get out of. So the first apartment was a landed property, but it was musky, it was not well ventilated, it was cramped with boxes, and they actually showed me to level 2, which is a small room with a double deck bed, and they were actually renting that particular bed space, which was very different from what was advertised. The second property I went to felt very cold. There was no warmth when you go into the common space like the kitchen or the living room. It was not well kept. It was there was no decoration. It didn't feel like a home, and the tenants would just be in their individual rooms, and you know that they don't really come out to mingle, talk to one another. So I strongly recommend you not to just depend on the photos or just to send SMSs or messages to the main tenant, but really go down, have a chat with them, have a sense of the environment, because that's very important. You are looking for a sanctuary where you want to be able to relax after a day of hard work. Make sure you find a place that you like before you sign the tenancy agreement. Now, the second thing you need to know is about the art of staying with others. As you would already have known, staying with other people can be a bit challenging, but how can you make it more enjoyable? As mentioned in the first tip that I earlier mentioned on, going down to have a chat with the main tenants and the tenants who are already staying there is very important. It's always good at the beginning to find out how are the bills being shared, what is it that they pay for, are they calculative? When you are renting a place together, you will need to replace light bulbs, you will need to buy washing detergents for the laundry, detergent for the floor, for the liquid soap, etc. It'd be good to find out how is it that everyone chips in together to pay for such a thing. And my take is, it's always good to not be calculative, and I think once you're not calculative, they sense it and everyone just chips in, makes it feel more like a home. So the second thing is about cleanliness. especially among the common areas like the kitchen, the living room. So it'll be good to find out how do they actually clean the place. Is it like they hire a part-time maid? Who will go and look for the part-time maid? How are the bills being shared? And also like the toilet. So unless you are renting a master bedroom that comes with your own ensuite bathroom, very likely you will be sharing a bathroom with someone else. When you go down to have a chat with them to view the place, it's also good for you to find out how the toilet is maintained. Maybe find out from them, how do they clean. So the third thing you need to know about is about the fees that you will be required to pay, either upfront or monthly, as well as the signing of the lease agreement. The lease agreement is a contract between you and the main tenant or you and the landlord. So make sure you read through carefully. In a lease agreement, they usually include details of the parties, the monthly rent amount, the payment details. They also talk about what the tenant and the landlord promises to do. Example, like the tenant will take care of minor repairs, while the landlord will take care of major repairs like the aircon, changing of the washing machine, etc. So do make sure you read through carefully and ask if you're in doubt before you sign. So it is also a very common practice in Singapore for the landlord to request for the tenant to pay a 1-month security deposit for a 1-year lease or a 2-month security deposit for a 2-year lease. So this deposit will be held by the landlord for the entire lease period, and it will be returned to the tenant after subtracting any damages that have been incurred by the tenant during the stay. So at the start, tenants will need to pay a one-off stamp duty tax. Usually the agent representing the landlord will collect it from the tenant and will submit it to IRAS as part of the whole procedure. So I hope you found this useful. May you find the sanctuary that you are looking for. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.